going to get right into UFC 279. Nate Diaz has Matt Chimaev. All right, we're going to get right into the first one. Johan Lannis versus Darren Weeks. Weeks 0-2 so far in the UFC. Made his UFC debut against Brian Barberena. Had a great performance and actually edged out Barberena slightly, I think. Um, but it was a very close fight, very tough to call. And then he got outclassed by Ian Gary in his next time out, who's a very solid prospect in a pretty one-sided fight. He only has a 5-2 record, but an extensive amateur career going 15-4. Has finished all of his pro wins, 3 by KO, 2 by sub. His strong suit, I would say, is his striking, very straight punches. He's got a boxing style, not the hardest hitter. I also think he's kind of undersized for welterweight. He's taking on Johan Lannis, who's a very powerful striker, who's also with a boxing background, winning 6 of his 8 wins by KO TKO. He's 1-1 in the UFC, coming off a very hard-fought UFC debut against Gabe Green. He was beating him up too. He won the first round for sure. Got a knockdown in the second, but gassed himself out and then ended up getting TKO'd himself. Both guys are very technical strikers with a boxing style. I expect this fight to stay on the feet. And tough one to start the night, honestly. Johan has the size and power on his side for sure. And I think he takes this one. I actually do. I like his striking, but I am still worried about that gas tank. I did see him go to the UFC PI, and he was working a lot on his cardio, and that was honestly very refreshing to see. So it kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes me feel a little better about this. He is the underdog in this, and I'm actually going to have a lot of underdogs to start the card. Not so many later on, but I got plenty to start off the night. So I'm going to go with Johan Lannis. And we're going to move right into the next one. Elise Reed versus Melissa Martinez. Elise Reed hasn't looked good so far in the UFC, getting knocked out in 2 out of her 3 UFC fights. Her lone win being a split decision against Corey McKenna. She's a striker, but doesn't really have crazy volume. She does use a lot of kicks, but the kicks, they're like very slight lower leg kicks that start to add up, but it's nothing powerful, nothing crazy. Also, she does struggle with defending takedowns, with a takedown defense sitting around 50%. She's taking on undefeated 7-0 25-year-old prospect from Mexico, Melissa Martinez. She's former K1 kickboxing champ and world champ at Combat Global. I watched her fight, her last fight against Desiree Yanez, and Martinez grappling was tested and she was almost finished. She was in full mount in the second round and was saved by the bell. So it didn't look too good. And then in the third round, both girls just kind of like looked super tired and like held each other against the fence. So I wasn't impressed by either one, but I really wasn't impressed by Melissa Martinez. Also, she hasn't fought in 3 years, and for someone who's only 25 with not that much experience, I would say that she's going to have some ring rust. I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. Definitely another tough one to start the night betting wise. But I'm gonna have to go with the underdog in Elise Reed. Very, very slight underdog. I think it's like plus 135, but I like her in this. I just wasn't impressed by Melissa Martinez. And yeah, I'm gonna go with Elise Reed, and we're gonna move right into the next one. Chad and Helliger versus Alatang Haley. I really have not liked what I've seen so far with Alatang Haley. He's a freestyle wrestler and he's very good at it, but his striking's poor, pretty one-sided. He's a statue on the feet, heavy front foot. His head movement's poor. It's a huge target. He has a minus 2.2 striking differential, only 33% accuracy. I kind of lost hope for Haley when he had a draw against Gustavo Lopez, who is not a high level of competition whatsoever. And now he's taking on Chad and Helliger, his 2-0 under the UFC umbrella. He's no spring chicken. He's 35 years old. He's made his debut in his last time out, and he's already 35. Yeah, that's what I said. That being said, he's on a 10-fight winning streak, finishing 8 of those, spanning over 6 years. He's a very hard hitter, and he doesn't look it because he is pretty small for a 135er. He's probably one of the smallest on the roster, but he's very fast. I like his striking. Stylistically, this fight is tough for him. He's been taken down 9 times over his first 2 UFC fights, and Haley does have a very grappling heavy fight style. He does get takedowns, Haley, but he does have trouble controlling his opponent once they're on the ground. For the most part, you see them a lot of times get back up to their feet. But call me crazy. I think I'm gonna go three underdogs in a row. I just like Ann Helliger's fight style, and yeah, I'm just not impressed by Alatang Haley. He definitely got gifted a couple of wins so far in the UFC. Particularly his first fight against Dana Beckerall. Uh, I thought he clearly lost that, and then that Ryan Benoit fight, that was pretty close too. So, um, yeah, I just think he's been gifted a couple of wins, and I would love to see Chad and Helliger win. Also sitting at like a plus 140, so yeah, three underdogs in a row. And we're going to move right into the next one, Norma Dumont versus Danielle Wolf. Norma Dumont is actually one of the few good fighters on the women's featherweight roster. She started her MMA journey in BJJ and has a very good sub game, but also found Sanda, Chinese kickboxing, soon after. And so she is very well rounded. She has a plus 1.5 striking differential, 50% accuracy, and one takedown per fight with 70% takedown defense. Now she's taken on Danielle Wolf, who's making her UFC debut and actually made her pro MMA debut in her last time out. She is 1-0. She has a 1-0 pro record, and that was on the Contender Series back in 2020. She was gifted that win. I'm gonna be just frank with it. She got absolutely demolished, dominated, but ended up getting a win, a decision win. Uh, it was just an absolute miscarriage of justice. 100%. The UFC was in the judges' pockets that night. It had to have been. Go watch that fight. She just gets beat up. She's a former national champ in boxing and an Olympic boxer, but she's 38 years old, very late transition to MMA, not to mention a horrible showing in her first debut, and she hasn't fought in 2 years. So I would like to say this is all Norma Dumont. I think she's she's going to grapple with her. Yeah, Danielle Wolf's not going to be able to do anything about it. So I'm going to go with Norma Dumont in that one. All right, we're going to move right into the next one. Jake Collier versus Chris Bennett, Fat Boy Face Off. In Jake Collier's 11 fight UFC career, he's won and lost every other fight. So if he continues this pattern, he should be winning this fight. So breakdown over. He did lose a very close fight in his last time out against Andrei Arlovsky, but I actually thought he won. 14 out of 14 media members scored it for Collier too. But hey, that happens, and it happens a lot in the sport. He's very good, high volume striker, just touches his opponent, picks them apart on the feet. He's light on his feet for a guy his size and has a very active jab, utilizes a lot of kicks. Chris Barnett is here in the UFC solely for his entertainment factor. He's a very undersized heavyweight. He's coming in at 5'9", 265, but he's a freak athlete, very fan-friendly fight style. He's going to go out there, put on a show, do some Superman punches, a lot of spinning kicks, and he's going to have a hell of a walkout. It's going to be like a 15-minute walkout with him dancing the entire time. But he's an older guy, not necessarily known for getting a ton of wins, just more being entertaining, and he does gas out quite fast. But overall, yeah, this fight should be all Collier. He's just the smarter guy in there, bigger, more technical, more well-rounded mixed martial artist. So yeah, I got to go with Jake Collier on that one for sure. All right, we're gonna move right into the next one. Jamie Pickett versus Dennis Tulinland. Jamie Pickett has had a pretty up and down time in the UFC, mostly down. He's a very long, lanky striker, physically 6'2", 80-inch reach at middleweight. You would think he would be a terror, but he just doesn't utilize that reach at all. He's a pretty poor striker, actually. He's got very low volume. At that size, just putting out a jab could be a difference maker, and he just doesn't do anything like that. A lot of the time, he's the guy that's closing the distance, which negates that reach altogether. Dennis Tulinland made his UFC debut in his last time out and got subbed in the second. He's got a 10-6 record, winning 8 by KO TKO, and out of those 6 losses, 3 by sub, 2 by decision. His record is pretty padded. In his last 5 wins, 3 of those opponents had 0 wins, and one opponent in that same 5-win span has a 7-15 record right now. But all of his fights go one of two ways. He goes out there and he throws caution to the wind, and he looks for a finish, like swinging and banging, 100%. Like he's either gonna get finished or he's gonna finish you in like the first minute or two. And if he doesn't, he slows down tremendously and likely gets finished himself or decision. This is a real tough one. It's like, do I think Jamie Pickett can weather the storm of Dennis Tulinland. Yeah, oh, dude. I had Jamie Pickett up until this point, but I just don't know anymore. I just don't know anymore. Oh wow. Yeah, I guess I'm going with Jamie Pickett hesitantly. That might switch. I don't know. This might not have been helpful, but damn. Yeah, Jamie Pickett. I had that. So we're going Jamie Pickett rolling with it. We're going to move right into the next one. Hakeem Dawodu versus Julian Erosa. Call it luck. Call it a career resurgence. But Julian Erosa has pulled his career out of the depths of the UFC roster. After a 1-4 run where he got KO'd in 3 of those fights, he bounced back with a 4-1 run for himself. That being said, and this is big. He has been knocked down in 3 fights in this 4-1 run, and miraculously was able to recover in them, which it's just crazy, and that can only go on for so long. In Erosa's last 10 fights, he's been knocked down in 7 of those fights. His chin is very questionable. He's had a good run. His striking's very high volume. He's landed over 100 significant strikes in 3 out of his last 5. He's got great cardio. He's relentless, and he's tough as nails. He comes back, from the dead. You think a guy would be out, but he gets back to his feet. It's pretty crazy. He's taken on Hakeem Dawodu, who's 4-1 his last 5 too, with his only loss coming from Movsar Evloev. And Dawodu actually weathered the storm of Evloev and won the 3rd round one-sidedly. And it was actually pretty good to see. Dawodu is a kickboxer, very technical striking. He's got a plus 2.7 striking differential at 50% accuracy. He wins overwhelmingly by decision. He's got great cardio, fights very smart. And I think this one is all mean Hakeem Dawodu. You just can't trust. It's not necessarily that Dawodu is the heaviest hitter, but I just, Julian Erosa's chin is going to run out. It's impossible to keep it. He obviously over the past whatever the span of 10 fights was, 3 or 4 years, getting knocked down 7 times is just not a good sign. And I think his luck is going to run out. So I'm going to go with Hakeem Dawodu. All right, I'm going to move right into the next one. Johnny Walker, Ian Cutelaba. Walker 1-4 in his last 5. Most recently coming off a brutal KO loss from Jamal Hill in one of the funniest KOs I've ever seen. He's got a very fan-friendly fight style. He's very flashy, very athletic striking. He's got an 82-inch reach to go along with it. He took a pretty big jump in competition after his 3-0 KO start in the UFC. During this losing streak right now, he's fought several grapplers like Corey Anderson, but Anderson was able to knock out Walker in the first round very quickly. And then he fought Nikita Krylov, and he was controlled for 11 minutes and 15 seconds of a 15-minute fight. And it doesn't help that he fights out of SBG Ireland, which I think is one of the worst MMA gyms in the game right now. I might catch some heat for that, but it's just really bad. But out of all this, his biggest problem is that he does have a very questionable chin, and he's taken on Ian Cutelaba, who stylistically I think is a tough matchup for Walker. He's 3-1-1. He's 1-3-1 in his last 5 with 2 brutal back-to-back losses from Magomed Ankalaev, where Cutelaba I don't think really had any business in fighting him twice. Then had a very tough fought battle with Dustin Jacoby, who I think Dustin Jacoby is an absolute menace at lightweight. He's 7-0-1 since returning to the UFC and has looked absolutely stellar. So that ended in a draw. That was a good look for him. And then Cutelaba recorded 20 takedowns in his last 3 fights at 70% accuracy. And he's looked good. His striking is just piss poor, but, he is like a suffocating grappler for sure. He can be a little leg humper if he has to and slow things down, but whatever. And Walker has had trouble with takedowns and comes from a gym notoriously known for their lack of takedown defense and focus on striking. So I like Cutelaba in this. I can't really trust Johnny Walker. I don't know. He's fun, but there's a lot of holes in his game. So yeah, I'm going Cutelaba. All right, moving right into the next one. Irene Aldana versus Macy Chiasson. Irene Aldana has looked really good lately with 2 first-round KOs in her last 3 fights. One thing I noticed is that her fight activity is way down. She's fought 4 times in 2019 and then has fought once a year since 2020. Also, she missed by pretty huge 3.5 pounds in her last time out. But overall, she's very technical, straight punches, a lot of pop in her punches. She's taking on Macy Chasson, who actually surprised me in her last time out in her performance against Norma Dumont, and just was able to out grapple Norma Dumont. And it was, I thought it was it was a split decision, but I thought that fight was all Chasson. Chasson was trying her luck at featherweight too in that time, which also surprised me. I think she's better at 135, and that's where this weight class is at. So yeah, I think this is a much better look for her. She's definitely more well-rounded fighter, Chasson. She is more of a grappler, averages 2 takedowns per fight, 33% accuracy. This one's a tough call. Probably I'm just gonna stay away from this one on the main card. Probably the one to stay away from. But yeah, I'm gonna go Irene Aldana. I like her game. She's fun. All right, gonna move right into the next one. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. This one is a fucking banger. I love Kevin Holland's move down to welterweight. The guy's an absolute massive for the division. 6'3", 81-inch reach at 170. It's just crazy. And since moving down, he's gone 2-0 with 2 finishes, 2 Performance of the Night awards. Holland is a guy who's known for his electric striking, surprisingly powerful punches. He's got you wouldn't think a guy is able to hit that hard, but oh yeah, he does for sure. Yeah, he hits like a Mack truck. He's got a stiff jab. He's super active with. He's very good BJJ practitioner too. He has a black belt. He's taking on Daniel Rodriguez, who's a great striker in his own right. Different than Holland though. Rodriguez 7-1 in the UFC. He's got some absolute stellar boxing. He's relentless with his strikes, very high volume, averages 8 strikes per minute at a plus 2.6 striking differential at 50% accuracy. And he's also a guy that comes from a BJJ background. He's got a black belt from 10th Planet. This fight is tough too, man. Both guys are great technical strikers, and I think it's for sure staying on the feet. And D-Rod is going to want to close that distance. He's going to be at a 7-inch reach disadvantage, and I think that plays a big part in this. I think Holland frustrates him a lot with that. Um, Also, this fight is not at 170. It was supposed to be a welterweight fight, but it actually got moved to 180, which I think is big. So I think Holland is going to have an even more of a physical advantage in this. So yeah, I'm going to take Holland in this one. But what a banger! I'm super excited for that fight. Now we're going to move into the co-main event. The Leech, Li Lang versus Tony Ferguson. I know this probably already isn't going to be my most popular pick. And let me start off by saying I'm a huge fan of Tony, but the amount of damage he has taken over his 23-fight UFC career is just crazy. And once that damage catches up to you, there's really nothing you can do about it. Tony is on a brutal 4-fight losing skid, getting finished twice by KO, including one of the most brutal KOs in his last time out against Michael Chandler. And it was one of the few times I was actually watching UFC or MMA in general, and I was like, wow, I think this guy might actually be dead. He's lost his last 13 rounds in the UFC, and I know he looked better in the first round against Michael Chandler in his last time out, but it was still obviously 10-9 for Chandler. And then he was KO'd early in the second. The Leech is always someone fun to watch. In 7 out of his last 10 fights have been either Fight of the Night or Performance of the Night awards, including 5 knockouts. The guy's an absolute brawler, extremely heavy hands, has a wrestling background that helps him push the pace and close the distance because he only has a 71-inch reach. So he's got to get close in there, make it dirty, make it gritty. The Leech really struggles against high-level grapplers. His last 3 losses, I think he only has 4 losses in the UFC or something, but 3 of them were to in recent history, where Jake Matthews, Chimaev, and Neil Magny, all great grapplers, and they grappled with him and they had his number. This fight is taking place at welterweight, so the Leech is gonna have a size advantage. So it's gonna make it tough for Tony to grapple with him too. I think get him down to the ground if he wanted to do that, which I don't really think is gonna happen. And I hate to be that guy, but I think the Leech is able to I don't want to say finish, but possibly finish Tony in this and make it five in a row for Tony. And yeah, going the Leech in that one. Gonna move right into the main event. Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. Okay, Chimaev is already sitting at a minus 1200, and it's only been signed for like a month, maybe. Nate Diaz just wants out of the UFC. He just announced, I think, yesterday that he's making his own promotion and will be putting in for his promotional license after this Saturday. And let me tell you, Dana White is a cold motherfucker for this. After Nate literally built up with some of the biggest pay-per-views in UFC history, some of the craziest wars we've ever seen in UFC history. Uh, just throwing the guy to the literal wolf. And I would love nothing more to see Nate catch Chimaev and a sub and cash out as a plus 800 underdog. But God Almighty, is he going to have his hands full with Chimaev? 5 fights in the UFC. He has 5 wins, 5 Fight of the Night awards, 4 finishes. But he did finally show that he was human in his last time out. In a hard fought fight against Gilbert Burns that was very, very close. He's a suffocating grappler. He's got heavy hands. He's crazy, but he's going to be fighting a zombie in Nate Diaz in this one. I don't want to jinx this, but I have a feeling I have a terrible feeling in my gut that there's going to be a cut like in that Masvidal fight against Nate Diaz where everyone went home, with the tail between their legs because the fight got canceled. There's not much to do with these odds. You got to bet on Diaz. Diaz double chance sub decision is probably at like a plus 1,000. But overall, it's overwhelmingly in favor of Chimaev. But it would be such a Nate Diaz move to go out beating the toughest guy in the UFC. Just a big fuck you to the UFC, big fuck you to Dana White. I would love to see that. That would be absolutely amazing. And yeah. So that's it. UFC 279 in the books. All right, no brainer. Peace.